Detroit, Michigan, 6:13 p.m., March 14th. The cold wind blew hard through the narrow streets of Eastmore, a forgotten neighborhood east of downtown Detroit. Cracked sidewalks, flickering streetlights, and boarded-up houses told the story of a place that progress had left behind. But people still lived here, families, workers, kids trying to make it to school, and elders watching from porches with tired eyes. Among them was Jamal Reeves, a 17-year-old high school junior with a quiet smile and a dream of becoming an architect. He was walking home from the after-school tutoring program at Westman High, his headphones blasting Kendrick Lamar. His hoodie was up not out of rebellion, but because the wind cut through like razor blades. As he turned onto Lanier Street, he noticed a police cruiser parked awkwardly across from the old community center. Jamal felt that familiar twinge in his stomach. He didn't do anything wrong, he told himself. Just walk. But the red and blue lights flared suddenly. Doors opened. Hey, stop right there. Hands where I can see them. Jamal froze, his hands immediately up. What did I do? I'm just going home. Shut your mouth and keep your hands up. Two officers, both white, approached aggressively. One of them shoved Jamal against the wall of the center, his backpack falling to the ground. You fit the description. Jamal's face twisted in confusion. Of what? They didn't answer. One officer began patting him down while the other opened his backpack and started going through it. What none of them knew was that across the street, mounted on a rusted lamp post, was a small, forgotten volunteer camera relic of a now-defunded neighborhood safety program. It was barely working, but tonight, by sheer coincidence, it was rolling. Across town, 8:50 p.m. Mr. Walter Fletcher, 54, sat in the back room of his modest home, where monitors flickered dimly. A former investigative journalist, now semi-retired and running a local community watch initiative, he spent his nights sipping instant coffee and monitoring the neighborhood camera feeds mostly out of habit. But tonight, a flashing red arrow caught his eye. Camera 23 Lanier Street had a motion spike and audio anomaly. Curious, he rewound the footage. What he saw made him sit upright. To cops, one of them slamming a kid against the wall. No weapon, no struggle. The boy's voice trembling as he asked what he'd done wrong. The officers rummaging through his belongings like trash. He watched the video twice, then 3 more times. The boy said his name, Jamal. Fletcher paused. His mind raced. This wasn't unusual. In fact, he'd seen things like this before, but this one had something different. This one had clarity, context, and sound. It was undeniable. He clicked export and saved the file. The Reeves household to 10:16 p.m. Jamal sat silently at the dinner table, his food untouched. His mother, Rhonda, a nurse who had just finished a double shift, looked across the table. You didn't even touch your food, baby. What's wrong? Jamal hesitated. Cop stopped me today, pushed me against a wall, went through my bag, said I looked like someone. Rhonda's eyes filled with a mix of rage and helplessness. Did they hurt you? He shrugged. Just my shoulder. She stood up suddenly and grabbed her phone. We need to file a complaint. This can't keep happening. Jamal stopped her. They'll just say it was a misunderstanding. They always do. There was a long silence. Rhonda sat back down. I hate this world sometimes. The upload, March 15th, to 42 a.m. Walter Fletcher hesitated, finger hovering over the upload button on a video sharing site he hadn't used in years. He masked the video's source, ran it through to anonymizers, and uploaded it under the name Detroit, March 14th. No explanation needed. He didn't add a caption, just raw footage, clear, unedited. He turned off his monitor, lit a cigarette he hadn't touched in 3 years, and whispered, "Let the world see." Later that morning, viral. By 10 a.m., the video had 18,000 views. By noon, it was trending on Twitter under hashtag Justice for Jamal. By 3 p.m., a local news station picked it up. By evening, the police department issued a generic statement. We are aware of the video circulating online and are conducting an internal review to determine context and any potential misconduct. The officers involved have not been suspended at this time. Reaction, March 16th. Jamal couldn't go to school. There were reporters at the entrance of Westman High. Rhonda took the day off work to answer phone calls. Some were supportive. Some were threatening. A stranger left a note on their mailbox. "Keep your kid out of trouble," or "Next time it won't be so gentle." Meanwhile, Mr. Fletcher's inbox was flooded. Some accused him of attacking law enforcement. Others called him a hero. But behind all the noise, one thing was certain. A long-ignored corner of Detroit had finally been seen. And something had just begun. Detroit, March 15th, 11:48 p.m. The glow of a laptop screen was the only light in Jamal Reeves' bedroom. The video had now reached over 2 million views. And Jamal, who hadn't posted a single thing about it, was at the center of it all. He didn't sleep that night. Not because he was afraid, though that fear was there. It was something else. Something heavier. Like being trapped in the middle of a burning room, unable to move. His face was everywhere. Instagram clips, TikTok reactions, think piece YouTube videos titled "Detroit Teen Harassed by Cops. Here's Why It Matters." Some called him brave. Others called him a thug pretending to be a victim. Jamal just wanted it all to stop. March 16th to 8:00 a.m. Walter Fletcher stared out the window as the mail truck passed by without stopping. Mail always came by 8:15. He hadn't left the house in 36 hours. The outside world felt weaponized. The comments under the video were a battleground. "This is what happens when people don't obey the law. I've lived in that area for 30 years. And this is standard Detroit police behavior. That's the problem. Where can we donate to support the kid?" Fletcher's phone buzzed, a number he didn't recognize. He answered. "Is this Mr. Fletcher?" "Yes." "Who's asking?" "This is Detective Carlton from the Detroit PD. We'd like to speak with you regarding some footage you may have access to." "I've got nothing to say to you without a lawyer present," Fletcher replied, instantly alert. A pause, then the line went dead. March 16th to 12:20 p.m., Westman High School. Principal Douglas stood with arms folded as a group of reporters gathered outside the fence. Jamal had been told to stay home for his own safety, but that hadn't stopped students from showing solidarity. Dozens of kids showed up wearing #Justice for Jamal t-shirts. Some had painted "I am Jamal" on their backpacks. A few teachers said nothing. Others looked visibly uneasy. Inside the district office, an emergency meeting was being held. Public pressure was real now. The city's mayor issued a statement. "We're aware of the situation and urge citizens to remain calm. We will allow the proper channels to investigate this matter, but no suspension, no names released, just platitudes." March 17th, local news, 7 p.m. The police released bodycam footage from the officers involved, but the audio was mysteriously garbled. The video showed a shaky encounter, edited for clarity. As they claimed, no shoving, no voice of Jamal asking, "What did I do?" The department insisted Jamal matched the description of a robbery suspect. Then came the twist. No robbery report had been filed that day. That detail was buried in the 6th paragraph of a local news website. The rest of the media ran the sanitized version. March 18th, Rhonda Reeves' living room. Rhonda scrolled through her phone with trembling hands. Her sister in Atlanta had called crying. Her brother in Chicago said he saw Jamal's face on CNN. She turned to Jamal, who sat in silence on the couch. "You want me to get a lawyer, baby? We can sue, or we can make them stop talking about you." Jamal looked at her, eyes red from lack of sleep. "I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask to be a symbol." Rhonda reached for his hand. "But maybe this moment asked for you." March 19th, back room, Fletcher's house. Fletcher hadn't uploaded anything since the video went viral. He watched from a distance as the world tried to shape the narrative around Jamal. He logged into his surveillance system, looked through archived footage, found another incident. From February 10th, different boy, similar treatment. And another, from January. This time it was a girl, no older than 14. Yelled at for suspicious behavior as she walked home from her cousin's house. Fletcher sat back, rubbing his temples. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't one rogue officer. It was a pattern. He created a folder. Patterns Unsee. March 20th, late night knock. 3 firm knocks on Fletcher's door jolted him from his chair. He peered through the peephole. A man in a brown USPS jacket stood holding an envelope. Fletcher opened the door a crack. "Package for Walter Fletcher." "Yeah." The man handed it over and left without a word. Inside the envelope, a printed screenshot of the YouTube video, a red X over Jamal's face, and for words scribbled in marker, Shoulda kept quiet. Fletcher locked the door, turned off the lights, and pulled the blinds shut. March 21st, the fuse is lit. Protests began forming outside Detroit. Police HQ, not just high school students, not just activists. Mothers, pastors, college kids, bus drivers, sanitation workers. A woman held a sign reading, "If the camera hadn't glitched, would we even know?" The protest was peaceful, but the air was thick with tension. Helicopters hovered above. Police stood in riot gear. Inside City Hall, officials debated strategy. They weren't worried about Jamal. They were worried about what else might be on those tapes. Closing scene, same night, 11:57 p.m. Jamal sat by his window. He opened Instagram. His DMs were flooded. He hadn't replied to a single one. He posted a story. Black screen. White text, "I didn't want to be seen, but now that I am, I won't disappear." March 22nd, Detroit Free Press headquarters. Daria Mendez stared at her laptop screen, rewatching the viral video for the 5th time that morning. She'd covered crime in Detroit for nearly 12 years, but something about this one was different. She wasn't interested in the yelling, or even the moment Jamal was pushed. She was focused on the background, on what the tape didn't show. There, in the far right corner of the footage, was a second police cruiser. Unmentioned in any report, no badge numbers visible, no lights on, just parked, half hidden by a dumpster. Why wasn't that car listed in the official incident report? Daria clicked download, then picked up her phone. "Richards," she said when her editor answered. "I think there's a missing cop car in this story." March 23rd, Rhonda Reeves' kitchen. Jamal hadn't been to school in for days. He ate his breakfast in silence, eyes locked on the television. The morning news had moved on. The anchor's tone was chipper, disconnected. And another news. The Detroit Zoo welcomes its first baby giraffe of the season. Rhonda clicked it off. "You still thinking about the video?" she asked. Jamal shrugged. "That's all people see now. A damn video. Like that's all I am." Rhonda reached across the table. "You are not that video. But that video is something a lot of people needed to see." March 23rd to 2:15 p.m. Fletcher's garage. Walter Fletcher sat in front of a wall of monitors. What started as a side project had become a lifeline for Jamal, and now for others. He clicked through archived footage again. Slowly, methodically. Then he found it. February 4th. A boy named Malik stopped on his way to a tutoring session. He'd waved at the camera. Smiled. Moments later, an officer shoved him face first into a squad car. No visible reason. No report. Fletcher leaned back in his chair. This wasn't about one video anymore. It was a map of invisible abuse, drawn in pixels and silence. He copied the footage to a flash drive. He knew exactly who needed to see it. March 24th, Daria's office, Detroit Free Press. The message was anonymous, no name. Just a Dropbox link and 3 words. "It keeps happening." Daria's stomach flipped as she clicked the file. More surveillance. Footage, different dates, different kids, same pattern. Always poor neighborhoods, always black or brown children, always no report. She opened a new document and started typing. An unseen pattern, the hidden surveillance footage, reshaping Detroit's justice debate. Her editor walked in mid-sentence. "You're still on the Jamal story. I'm not just on it. I'm about to blow it wide open." March 25th, City Hall. Mayor Erica Langford rubbed her temples as the police commissioner flipped through pages of printed screenshots. "You're telling me this footage is real? It appears so." The commissioner muttered, "But we're verifying sources." Langford looked out the window. Protesters again. Louder this time. Signs reading, "We see you now and fix the system or step down." "What happens if more tapes show up?" she asked. Then the commissioner sighed. "We've got a wildfire." Langford stood, calm but firm. "Start preparing a press statement. No excuses. If there's a pattern, we name it before someone else does." March 26th, ABC 7 evening broadcast. Breaking: local journalist uncovers pattern of police abuse in Detroit. Video clips from Fletcher's archive aired on national TV. Jamal's footage was just the beginning. Names like Malik, Daniela, Trey faces never before seen, now part of a growing national reckoning. In living rooms across America, people watched Detroit's wounds open. Some were furious, others felt vindicated, and some, especially those in power, began to panic. March 26th, Jamal's bedroom. His inbox was overflowing. Activists, lawyers, even celebrities reaching out. He ignored most of it. Then came a message from someone who didn't want to be seen either. "I saw what happened. It happened to me too. Keep talking, or they'll make it disappear." Jamal read it twice, then opened his phone camera. He hit record. "My name is Jamal Reeves. I didn't ask for the spotlight, but I'm not stepping away from it either. What happened to me wasn't the first time, and if we stay quiet, it won't be the last." Closing scene, March 27th, empty police station parking lot. A man in plain clothes lit a cigarette behind the station. He looked up at a camera mounted to the wall, one he'd passed 1,000 times without thinking. But this time, it felt different. He turned away from it, pulling his hood up. Even the watchers were starting to feel watched. March 28th, archive room, Detroit Free Press. Daria Mendez adjusted her glasses as the microfilm spun beneath her fingers. She had come looking for an old incident. From 2011, a name had popped up in one of the anonymous messages she'd received after her article. Blew up: Ezekiel Banks, age 16. According to the records, he was stopped by police walking home from a part-time job at a car wash. The official report claimed suspicious behavior. No charges, no arrest, but no video. No public mention, just silence. Daria scribbled a note. "Another ghost." March 29th, Walter Fletcher's garage. Walter clicked through files in his system labeled by street names and dates. He wasn't sleeping well, not out of fear, but purpose. He was deep into a folder called /Jefferson Ave _2009/ when he found it. To white officers confronting a young man. The timestamp read May 9th, 2009. One officer pushed the teen against the hood of a car, then looked directly at the camera, but instead of stopping, he smiled. Walter froze. He recognized the badge number, one of the same officers from Jamal's encounter. He opened the footage folder and checked other videos. The same officer appeared again and again. Different victims, same patterns. It wasn't just bad training, it was behavior institutionalized through decades. March 29th, Detroit Police Internal Affairs Office. Detective Annika Porter reviewed the viral footage for the 100th time. She hated how politics had pulled her unit into the spotlight, but she also knew something wasn't right. The name Walter Fletcher kept coming up. A man with no badge, no authority, but a digital archive of damning truth. She called up old cases, looking for dismissed complaints. There were dozens. A few she remembered, others she didn't, but most had something in common: lack of evidence. Subject could not be reached. Witness did not follow through. Ghosts swept under policy rugs. She marked them all for review. March 30th, Reeves' household. Rhonda Reeves answered the door to find two women standing there, middle-aged, dressed modestly, tired eyes full of intent. "We saw your son's video," one of them said. "We're part of a group called Mothers for Justice. We were wondering if you'd talk to us." Inside, Jamal listened as they told their stories. One had lost a son in police custody. The other had fought for years to reopen her daughter's case. Jamal asked one question: did it ever change anything? The older woman looked at him, voice steady. "Not until someone listens. And finally, someone is." March 30th, City Hall basement. A private meeting was held with Mayor Langford, the police commissioner, and legal advisors. They were no longer talking about PR. They were talking about liability. Walter Fletcher has over 400 hours of archived footage, the legal counsel said. Some of it is from over a decade ago. There's enough to suggest a systemic failure. The commissioner slammed his pen down. He's not even a cop. He's a guy with a home camera set up. Langford stayed quiet, then finally spoke. If a man with a few cameras can uncover this, then we should ask why no one in our entire department did. Silence. March 31, Daria's second article drops. Headline: The Forgotten Files, How Detroit's Police Misconduct Disappeared in Plain Sight. The piece named names, dates, specific footage matched with incident reports, some of which had been officially closed, others that were never filed at all. It hit the internet like a hammer. National outlets ran it. Within hours, by the evening, Walter Fletcher was being called Detroit's accidental archivist. April 1st, outside Westman High School, Jamal returned to school under heavy media attention. Teachers were instructed not to engage, but some gave him nods, quiet support. A few students jeered. Others offered fist bumps. In civics class, a discussion broke out. Cameras don't lie, someone said. Jamal, quiet all period, finally spoke. They don't lie, but the people watching sometimes do, or they look away. The room fell quiet. The teacher didn't interrupt. April 1st, Internal Affairs. After hours, Detective Porter printed a list. 22 incidents. All involved the same 3 officers across 9 years. She pushed the folder across the desk to her captain. I think we've been sitting on a rot we never admitted existed. The captain rubbed his face. You know what happens if we go forward with this? Porter nodded. We clean it, or we burn with it. April 2nd, Walter's garage. For the first time in days, Walter stood outside. A neighbor walked over quietly. I watched that clip on Channel 4, he said. Didn't know you were recording all that. Walter didn't smile. Just said, someone had to. The man nodded. You ever think they'll come after you for this? Walter paused. They already did. Just didn't know they were too late. He looked at the camera mounted above the door. Still blinking. Still watching. Closing scene. City Archive Storage Facility. A clerk wheeled out a box labeled Closed Complaints to 008-2012. Inside, dust, old tapes, forgotten reports. A faded sticky note on top read, no public relevance. But now relevance was rewriting everything. The ghosts weren't gone. They were finally being named. April 3rd, Walter Fletcher's garage, 6:42 a.m. The air was unusually quiet. No birds, no cars. Just a kind of stillness that felt heavy. Walter's phone buzzed non-stop. Emails, calls, interview requests. But what caught his eye was a different kind of message, a threat. Keep digging, and we'll bury more than just the truth. He stared at the screen for a long moment, then calmly copied the message into a folder labeled threats_proof. Then he reached under the desk, unlocked a metal drawer, and pulled out a backup drive. He'd seen what happened to whistleblowers who didn't prepare. Exposure always had a price. April 3rd, Reeves' household. Jamal sat at the kitchen table scrolling through TikTok. His own voice played back in a dozen different clips. What happened to me wasn't the first time. If we stay quiet, it won't be the last. He wasn't sure if he felt proud or invaded. Rhonda placed a bowl of oatmeal in front of him. You eat. Then we talk. About what? Jamal asked. About what you're gonna do next. You're not just some viral face anymore. They're starting to listen, but that means they're gonna start coming harder, too. Jamal stirred the oatmeal. Without speaking, you afraid? She asked. Yeah, he admitted. Good, she said. It means you're sane, but don't let fear write your story. April 4th, Detroit Free Press Conference Room. Daria Mendez and her editor, Brian Richards, were in a heated conversation. They just tried to shut down our servers, she said. IT caught it in time, but someone tried to wipe everything tied to the Fletcher archive. Richards rubbed his temples. You realize we're now in possession of evidence that could trigger federal investigation? That's the point, Daria snapped. We don't wait. We go full publication, every video, every pattern, every officer named. Richards hesitated. That'll blow back on us. She leaned forward, then let it blow. But this time, let it blow on the truth. April 5th, national news headlines. Detroit's video archive triggers federal probe into police misconduct. Anonymous footage sparks national conversation on surveillance. And civil rights. Teenage victim becomes face of a movement. In just 2 days, the story had gone from local scandal to national reckoning. CNN, MSNBC, even Fox reluctantly joined the fray. And in every headline, 3 names kept surfacing: Walter Fletcher, Jamal Reeves, Daria Mendez. April 6th, Internal Affairs Division. Detective Annika Porter walked into a sealed evidence room with a flash drive from Fletcher. Inside was footage from 2013, a Hispanic teen dragged from a bus stop without cause, no complaint filed, no record of charges. Porter looked to her supervisor. "This isn't a few bad apples," she said. "It's an orchard built on looking the other way." The supervisor said nothing, just nodded grimly and reached for the intercom. "Get the legal team in here and contact the Department of Justice." April 6th protest at Hart Plaza. A crowd of nearly 3,000 people gathered beneath the Spirit of Detroit statue. Some held signs. Others stood in silence. A few wept. Jamal and Rhonda stood near the front. He didn't want to speak, but the organizers insisted. He took the mic reluctantly. "I didn't plan this. I didn't want it," he began. "But I also didn't want to be another name you put on a wall and forget about. None of us do." He looked across the crowd. "They taught us silence kept us safe. But I found out silence just keeps them safe." Applause broke out, not the kind for a celebrity, but the kind for someone who's finally saying what no one else dared to. April 6th, an apartment across town. 2 men watched the protest on TV. One of them was a retired officer. The other, his son, still on active duty. "Those tapes," the father muttered. "Some of those are from my days." The son looked at him nervously. "You think they'll come after you, maybe. But if they do, maybe it's about damn time." He picked up a phone and began dialing. April 7th, early morning, Walter's garage. Walter received an encrypted email from an unknown address. It read, "You don't know me, but I've seen things. I have old patrol reports. Things that never made it into any system. I want to help, but we need to meet in person." Attached was a heavily redacted report. Walter clicked to open it and froze. It was the same officer from Jamal's tape, but the date was 2005. He looked up at his camera feed. All green, all clear. For now, he typed a single line back. "Time and place. I'll be there." Closing scene, late night, City Hall. Mayor Langford stared at her reflection in the dark glass of her office window. The city behind her was lit with protest signs, flashing lights, and camera flashes. The walls were closing in. A voice from the corner, her advisor cut the silence. "You could resign. Step down. Say you didn't know." She turned slowly. "If I step down, I go quietly. And if I go quietly, this story gets buried." She walked over to her desk and pulled a press release from a drawer. "I'm going to say what no mayor's said before," she said. "I'm going to admit the city failed." And with that, she signed her name beneath the headline, "Official Statement on Police Misconduct and Civil Rights Accountability." April 8th, Detroit Federal Building, 9:02 a.m. FBI Special Agent Calvin Rowe sat in a sterile briefing room with 2 internal affairs investigators, 1 Department of Justice lawyer, and a monitor showing still frames from the Fletcher archive. On screen, time-stamped footage. A man slammed against a patrol car. A teenage girl handcuffed at a bus stop. A quiet homeless veteran kicked awake for sleeping on a public bench. The audio was minimal, but the violence undeniable. Calvin stood up and faced the room. "We're not looking at isolated incidents anymore. We're looking at a coordinated failure. Across multiple precincts, across multiple years." The lawyer nodded. "We're green-lighted to launch a full federal investigation. I want all names in that footage ID'd, every officer, every location. We build the map. We expose the rot." April 8, newsroom, Detroit Free Press. Daria Mendez sat with a printout of anonymous tips piling on her desk. She had 6 new names, to former cops willing to go on record, and 1 city clerk who said he could show falsified report logs. But something else caught her eye, a tip about Warehouse 12. The message read, Before the digital system, reports were scanned and boxed. They didn't purge all of it. Look into DPD's old storage off Linwood Avenue. But go with someone. It's not empty. That last part sent a chill down her spine. She texted Walter, "Meet me in an hour. Gloves. Flashlight. Backup drive. April 8th. Reeves household, 10:21 a.m. Jamal paced in his room while his phone vibrated with non-stop notifications. He wasn't just trending anymore, he was being followed, watched, even threatened. One message said, "Stay in your lane. Little activist, you're playing grown-up games." He showed Rhonda, "Time to go to the police," he said. She raised an eyebrow. "And which police would that be?" He paused. "Then what do I do?" Rhonda looked him dead in the eye. "You get louder. You film everything. You walk in packs. You make sure the next time they come, they're not alone and you're not either." April 8th, storage facility, Linwood Avenue, to 14 p.m. The door creaked open. Dust flew. Old wooden boxes stacked to the ceiling. Walter, Daria, and a flashlight. The only light they had. They searched quietly, no talking. Just the sound of breathing and cardboard flap staring. Then Ia froze. "Here, look." A box labeled 2006. Use of force logs. Inside, hundreds of scanned documents. She flipped through them. None of this is in the digital archive. And then another surprise. Photos dated, signed and time-stamped. Victims' faces, many of them known, some of them missing. Walter whispered, "They didn't just hide complaints. They hid people." He connected the drive, scanned 1,000 pages in minutes. But as they turned to leave, the sound of tires screeching outside stopped them cold. A flashlight beam shone under the door. Someone else knew they were here. Walter yanked Daria back behind a stack of boxes. Footsteps echoed. A voice, "Check the left aisle. They said they're in the back." Daria looked at Walter. He mouthed, "We go out the back." "No matter what." April 9th, national media outlets. Breaking headlines filled screens nationwide. Detroit police accused of decades-long evidence suppression. Federal agents seized department archives in overnight operation. Anonymous source links missing persons to police custody. Daria's report dropped at 7:12 a.m. Within 3 hours, it had over 2 million views. By noon, it was translated into Spanish and Arabic. The footage was now international. April 9th, Detroit City Hall press room. Mayor Langford stepped up to the podium. She looked worn, not from scandal, but from the weight of silence finally lifted. "I was wrong," she began. "We were all wrong." Gasps from reporters. No public servant should ever have the power to erase the people they serve. But that is exactly what happened here. She looked directly at the camera. "I'm calling for the suspension of all officers named in the Fletcher archive, effective immediately. A third-party oversight board will be formed within 48 hours, and I am formally requesting DOJ assistance in restructuring internal policy at every level." Then she did something few politicians ever did. She stepped away from the mic and took questions, all of them. April 10th, Jamal's school. He walked down the hall to mixed reactions. Some kids high-fived him. Others avoided eye contact. One teacher nodded with tears in her eyes. In his locker, someone had taped a note. "One of us finally stood up. Thank you." And under it, smaller handwriting, "I have a story too. Please don't stop." He put the note in his pocket. April 11th, Walter's garage, 6:05 p.m. Walter watched the sun go down through the dusty garage window. They had exposed so much, but with each truth came more shadows. More people stepped forward. More names, more silence shattered. The war wasn't over, but the reckoning had begun. Daria pulled up outside. She stepped out, laptop in hand. "We're not done," she said. Walter smiled. "Tired but resolute. Good. Neither is the truth." April 15th, Federal Courthouse, Detroit, 8:42 a.m. The sun broke gently over Detroit's skyline, casting long shadows across the granite steps of the federal courthouse. But the crowd gathered there hadn't come for the sunrise. They came for something else, something rare: accountability. Protesters stood shoulder to shoulder, wrapped in scarves and conviction. Their signs were handmade. We saw what you did. The archive never lies. Justice for Jamal, Tyrone, and all of US. Some held laminated photos of loved ones. Others carried only names that never made the news, names swallowed by silence. Rows of news vans blinked red and blue in alternating bursts. Reporters rehearsed intros while police kept a tight but quiet perimeter. There were no chants, no bullhorns, no chaos, just a shared silence so heavy it made the marble beneath their feet feel like sacred ground. Inside, the courthouse felt like the belly of something ancient, cold, echoing, nervous. The gallery filled quickly activists, legal observers, families, and students who had skipped class to witness history. No one looked at their phones. All eyes were front. Jamal Reeves, now 17, sat flanked by his mother on one side and Walter and Daria behind him. He wore the same hoodie from the day of the incident. On purpose, across the aisle sat four officers, clean-shaven, uniformed, still. Their lawyers whispered strategy in their ears. They didn't look at Jamal. Not once. At the center, Judge Elaine Broderick took her seat, stoic, sharp-eyed, and famously intolerant of spectacle. She tapped the gavel once. "Call your first witness." Jamal stood. The room didn't breathe. He stepped up, raised his hand, took the oath. Then he sat, gripping the edge of the witness box like it might float away if he didn't anchor it. "I was walking home from school," he began. "Didn't say nothing to no one. Didn't steal nothing. Didn't look suspicious, but they stopped me anyway." He paused. The courtroom remained silent. "They slammed me on the hood, searched my backpack, asked where I was going like I was trespassing on my own block. I asked what I did. They laughed." He turned slowly to face the four officers. "My life stopped for 5 minutes. But theirs, it just kept going. That's what hurts the most. Not the pain, not even the fear. It's knowing that to them, I wasn't even real." One of the officers shifted, but said nothing. "I'm not here for revenge," Jamal said. "I'm here because if I don't speak now, they'll keep pretending it never happened. Like all the times before me." The prosecution called their next witness, Officer Lucas Grant, a retired veteran with salt and pepper hair and a tissue balled in his right palm. Lucas looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. He took the stand hesitantly, glanced toward the bench, and cleared his throat. "I served 23 years in the 9th Precinct," he said. "I'm not proud of how most of those went." He paused, then continued, "Half of what we did never made it to paper. We were told not to write it down. Some of it didn't make sense, and some of it was just hate. Plain and simple." He described a system where officers earned promotions by numbers, stops, searches, arrests. Not safety, not de-escalation. And when body cams came in, the prosecutor asked, they learned the blind spots, the alleys, the buttons you could press to accidentally turn M off. Later, they just stopped writing reports. Figured, no paper trail, no problem. "Did you ever speak up?" His voice cracked. "No, I was a coward." He looked at Jamal. "But I'm trying not to be one now." April 15th, outside the courthouse, 12:03 p.m. The plaza was packed. The live stream played on a towering screen beside the courthouse. Families from neighboring cities, Chicago, Baltimore, Atlanta, gathered to watch. Some wept when Jamal spoke. Others clapped when Lucas did. And then Tyrone Barnes appeared. He'd been presumed dead for years. But Daria had found him in a halfway house in Illinois, misdiagnosed with schizophrenia, drugged into silence, forgotten by the very system that claimed to protect him. He took the stand, hands trembling. "They told me if I ever talked, they'd say I attacked them, that I was unstable, dangerous. I wasn't. I just wanted help." He rolled up his sleeves, then his shirt. Scars new and old testified in silence. "I thought I was alone," he whispered. "But it turns out, I was just invisible." April 16th, day 2 of hearings. The defense came out swinging. These officers were under pressure, one lawyer said. They were following established procedures. The judge raised an eyebrow. "And which procedure explains altered evidence logs?" Silence. Another attorney argued that the footage lacked context, that the clips were selectively edited, so Daria took the stand. "You want context," she said. We analyzed 112 hours of footage. Not 1 minute shows these officers de-escalating. Not one shows compassion. But every single one shows power being misused. Then she dropped the hammer, and none of this footage was voluntarily released. We had to subpoena it, leak it, fight for it. That's the real context. April 17th, the verdict. After 3 hours of deliberation, Judge Broderick returned to the bench. The room fell into a collective stillness. For the officers of Precinct 9, this court finds sufficient evidence of misconduct, obstruction, and conspiracy to falsify records. Gasps, tears, some quiet fist pumps, but mostly stillness, a reverent kind of justice. The court recommends immediate suspension and initiation of formal criminal charges via the grand jury. Then she turned to the city attorney, and this court directs the city of Detroit to begin reparations proceedings for victims of wrongful policing. This court will personally oversee that process. April 18th, the streets of Detroit. Detroit didn't riot. It remembered. Walls once covered with graffiti now bore murals. Jamal's face, Tyrone's eyes, the shadows of dozens more from the Fletcher archive faces finally seen. New kinds of protests emerged. Testimony circles, parks, churches, community centers. No cameras, no clicks, just people. Talking, listening, healing. April 20th, the local newsroom. Daria uploaded her final story. The archive was never about one boy. It was about every voice they tried to erase. She closed her laptop. Walter handed her a glass of ginger ale. To the ones who spoke up, he said. She raised hers. To the ones who finally got heard. April 21st, school auditorium. Jamal stood on the stage of his high school. No longer just a student. Not a hero. Not a victim. Just someone with something to say. He faced his classmates, his teachers, the principal, and the janitor who used to nod at him each morning. I didn't ask for any of this, he began. But I'm asking you to believe what you saw. What we all saw. Because if we keep pretending we didn't, then none of this changes. He paused. When one of us speaks up, and the rest actually listen, we're not just changing laws. We're changing what's normal. The audience stood in silence. No chants, no applause. Just hands over hearts. Because some truths don't need to be shouted. They just need to be believed. Final line. In a city once built on engines and industry, it wasn't steel that changed everything. It was a camera, a boy, and the courage to say, I saw what you did, and now the world does too.